Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers off to a pretty rough start to the season. 1-4-1 through their first 6 games. So I want to look at the games they've played thus far. I'll look at their stats as well, look at their upcoming schedule, all that fun stuff. So they started the season at Vancouver. They lose that game 8-1. And it's an ugly game, right? And this, you know what, if you're going to get the ugly game done, get it done early. So they're down 2-0 after the first. They're down 5-0 after the second. And it's just a complete meltdown team-wide, including the goaltending. Campbell pulled in this game, but Skinner and Campbell both record 12 saves on 16 shots. Draisaitl is the only goal scorer for Edmonton. It's what he does. He scores goals. So coming out of that game, they're going home and they're playing Vancouver again. And you expect a better game. And initially, you get that. They did score first. The Oilers did. It was tied 3-3 after the second period, but the Canucks pull it out in the third. Sam Lafferty, game-winning goal at 2:56 of the third period. Thank you, Toronto. So Skinner ends up with 12 saves on 16 shots in that game. But the Oilers, you can at least look at that one and say, yes, but they did outplay Vancouver. And I believe that. I think that the reality was DeSmith steals that game from the Oilers. So now they're 0-2. So what do they do next? They win. They go on the road, they go to Nashville, and they win 6-1. So it is a no-mercy game 4. They had a no-mercy game against, and this is good, right? Now they're going in the right direction. They led 4-0 after the first period. It's an angry team. Campbell ends up saving 43 out of 44, played an absolutely phenomenal game. The goals, Draisaitl had 2, Foegele had a goal, Hyman, McDavid, Nugent-Hopkins had a goal. Keep in mind the previous game against Vancouver, Draisaitl, McDavid, Nugent-Hopkins get goals. The core guys are getting the goals. They do need more scoring from depth players, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So they get that win over Nashville. Next, they go to Philly, and they lose 4-1 to the Philadelphia Flyers, a team being coached very, very well by John Tortorella, and definitely benefiting from getting Atkinson and Couturier back. So they were down 1-0 after the first. They were down 3-1 after the second. Philadelphia holds on, wins that one 4-1. Campbell saves 28 out of 32, and the only goal is scored by Zach Hyman. So for the Oilers, tough game, right? But you're coming home. It's a 2-game road trip. You get a split on the 2-game road trip. Not awful. But then you get home and you have an overtime loss against the Jets. And on a few levels, this one's tough. First off, you lose McDavid for 1 to 2 weeks. So that's not great. Not optimal. Secondly, you had a 2-0 lead in the first period. And they couldn't maintain. So early on, much like against Vancouver, they were playing quite well. It looked like they were going to win the game. And it just doesn't work. Scheifele ends up getting the overtime winner at 3 minutes and 53 seconds of the 3-on-3 period. Skinner saved 24 out of 27. The goal scored by Nurse and Bouchard. So 2 goals from the blue line, which is nice, but you don't get any goal scoring anywhere else. Then, last night against the Minnesota Wild, they lose 7-4. So ugly loss. It was tied 2-2 after one, and they led 3-2 after the second period. Campbell, 24 saves on 30 shots. So it has definitely not quieted anybody who would say, well, goaltending is going to hold Edmonton out of contention. The goals last night, Bouchard had 1, Kane had 1, and Foegele had 2. So Warren Foegele, 3 goals to start the season. Not bad, but they need more out of the depth players than just Foegele. So we'll go over here, we'll look at the scoring leaders. Draisaitl, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points in 6 games. Draisaitl has been very, very good. McDavid, of course, just 5 games because he's now missed 1 with injury and he's going to miss more. 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. And sadly, he will likely not wear this on Sunday when they play against the Calgary Flames. Bouchard, on the surface, it looks good. 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points in 6 games. But he's a -8. So I find that alarming, that he's scoring more than a point a game and yet his plus-minus is abysmal. Hyman, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points in 6 games. Nugent-Hopkins, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points in 6 games. Foegele, as previously mentioned, he's got 3 goals. He's also got an assist, so 4 points in 6 games. Kane, I've talked about him being off to a bit of a slow start. He did have a goal and an assist last night, so he may be heating up. He now has a goal, 2 assists, 3 points in 6 games. Nurse, a goal and an assist. We talked about his contract time and time again. But Nurse with 2 points in 6 games, they need more out of him. CC with just the 1 helper. He's played 6 games. Ekholm has played 5 games. He has 1 helper for them. And then you have Holloway, McLeod, Brown, and Janmark. No points out of any of them. And there are others, but I wanted to highlight them. Holloway, gifted young player they're looking for scoring from. McLeod should be, improving each season. We're not seeing that this year thus far. And Connor Brown was brought in with the idea that, he might have some natural chemistry with McDavid. He might fit into that top six. And scoring-wise, it just hasn't been there. And Janmark, no points from him yet either. He's a veteran they'd be counting on for probably in the 30-point range. And it doesn't sound like much, but it adds up. It adds up when you're not getting that scoring from further down. So they're not getting the depth scoring, and the defensive numbers and the goaltending just have not measured up. So looking at team stats, their 2.83 goals for per game is 19th. It's tied for 19th with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not good enough there. 4.5 goals against per game, that's 31st. Yep, they're right next to the last. I think San Jose's got the worst for goals against on the season. Their power play, 28%. That's not bad, but it's 9th. And keep in mind, this is a team that last year had a record greatest ever power play in National Hockey League history since that stat started being tracked. And so being down at 9th, a bit of a shocker. 75% penalty kill, that's 20th. So they're elite special teams, not as elite this year as last year. That will likely be hurt more by McDavid being out. Their shots, they're actually out shooting their opponents, 31.3 shots per game versus 30.3 shots allowed per game. Their goals per period really shows us where they're having a problem, and it's in closing out games. So if you're an Oilers fan, right now you're watching this and going, well, yeah, right. So first period, they're outscoring their opposition 9-8. Second period, they're outscored 8-7. So they're even. Not bad. The third period, last night's the first time they've had a goal in the third period all season. That is the one goal they have in this column, 10 goals against. So this is not very Oilers-like. I would imagine for Jay Woodcroft, this is really frustrating because this is a team that last year was lethal in third periods. 100 goals in third periods, and now they're on pace for like 13 this year. They're going to get their share of third period goals. But again, if you don't turn this around, right, the season goes by very, very quickly. So, of course, in overtime, they have no goals scored, one goal against, that being against Winnipeg. And so what's upcoming? Well, tomorrow night, they're at home against the New York Rangers. We saw with the Rangers against Calgary and against Seattle, they're going to be tough. And maybe this is a year we're going to see the Rangers end up being one of the better teams on the road, or maybe they're just having a really good swing through the West, right? But either way, that's not a gimme. Then you've got the Sunday game against Calgary. Easy for me to say. Heritage Classic. So this is a big game. Everybody's going to be paying attention to that. And, of course, Calgary needs a win just as bad as Edmonton does. I could easily have done this video about the Flames. Flames have not lived up to their potential either. The difference being the Flames were seen as a team that might jump back into the playoffs. The Oilers are seen as a team that might be Canada's best chance to get a Stanley Cup since 1993. And the reality is that so far they haven't lived up to that advanced billing. Then we get into the November games. On Thursday, they're at home against Dallas. On Saturday, they're at home against Nashville, who we've already seen they can beat, right? And then they go on the road for 3. On November 6th, on a Monday, they're in Vancouver. Then on the Thursday, they're in San Jose. And on the Saturday, they're in Seattle. So there's no back-to-back games. There's some nice spread between the games. And so you don't have to worry about it being an overly taxing schedule. But when we look at the goaltending numbers, this is troubling. So you have Campbell 1-3 with an .877 save percentage, and Skinner 0-1-1 with an .814 save percentage. I thought Skinner was a good goaltender last year. I didn't think he was fantastic, but definitely should be putting up better numbers than .814 thus far. And for Campbell, the .877 after the alarmingly mediocre season he put up last year, again, it's tough. And so for Ken Holland, it does reflect back then on him. Right? If Campbell has another down year, and if their goaltending doesn't measure up, you're taking a prime year for McDavid and Draisaitl where they're in their best shape they're going to be, and this is the best chance they have at it, and they just don't get the support, right? The supporting cast doesn't get the goals, which has been the storyline seemingly forever with the Oilers, and they're just not getting it. If you don't want to put it on the goalies, okay, well then the defense hasn't been good enough. It's one or the other, right? So this is a problem, and the funny part is people then chime in with, well, the problem is McDavid doesn't back check. that doesn't cause you to lose 8-1. Well, if McDavid back-checked, that doesn't cause them to lose the game against the Flyers or to blow the lead against the Jets. And last night, McDavid's not in the lineup. They lose 7-4. So getting him out of the lineup didn't exactly help the situation any. It will be interesting to see how things go because, again, teams that start slow traditionally don't make the playoffs. And if they do, it's more difficult. They have to really, really work that much harder to jump ahead of teams that are, 5, 6, 7, 8 points ahead of them. And while 5 or 6 points doesn't sound like it's very much, it ends up being really taxing to get that break where you're getting the wins and the other team's losing, especially if you have multiple teams to jump over, which the Oilers do. And we're already at that stage, and I know we're very, very early in the season, but it is remarkable how quickly a season can get away from you. Ask fans in Vancouver, Buffalo, Ottawa, teams that get off to slow starts here and there. Arizona had a miserable start many years ago, as a for instance, and at least it feels like it was many years ago now. But those slow starts can be tough. So if they don't win against the Rangers tomorrow night, if they don't win against Calgary the next night, I don't know what you do. And that's the big question too is, what do you do if you're Ken Holland? How do you fix this? You do not have cap space to fix it. So a trade, unless it's dollar out, dollar in, doesn't necessarily work. And you're just not getting the production. So do you look at coaching? My answer to that's no. My answer to that is, Woodcroft's record was fantastic coming into this season. But then what do you do? Like if you're Ken Holland and let's just say this is his final season as a general manager. Well, you don't want to just stand by and watch as the Oilers go down in flames. And, I thought, do I say it or do I not? And I thought, well, say it and point at the logo. But it's just the reality of it that this is a team that needs to get it together. And they're probably going to have to find the solution in the locker room with the coaching staff they currently have in place. So the answer is going to have to come from within. They're going to need to improve that penalty kill for sure. Find a way to generate some more goals and keep the puck out of their net. You can't be giving up 7 against the Wild, 8 against the Canucks, 4 against the Flyers, this overtime loss, 3 here against Winnipeg, and then 4 against Vancouver. It's not a winning formula. The one game where they were good, they went 6-1 over the Preds, but the other 5 outside of that, there were plenty of reasons to be concerned. So while I don't qualify this as necessarily being in panic region yet, there will likely be a panic index video soon, and if I had to put Edmonton's logo anywhere, it would likely be near the panic side of things right now because they need to get this together. Draisaitl's up, not this summer, but next summer. You want Draisaitl to be happy and want to stick around. And then after that, you've got McDavid. You want to make sure he's happy and he's going to stick around because otherwise you might be in a situation where the Oilers have to do some kind of a retool or they have to bring somebody else in, looking on the free agent market and everything. It's not an optimal situation. And, it would be an absolute disaster if at the end of this, Draisaitl's like, well, I don't think the Oilers are trending in the right direction. I want to go somewhere else. And we end up seeing Edmonton back outside the playoffs and potentially going into some kind of a retool rebuild. I don't know that Oiler fans could handle that, because of how long it was that they were a mediocre to bad team before they finally got it together after the drafting of McDavid. And even after drafting McDavid, it still took a while to get a formula that got them into the playoffs with home ice advantage and looking like a contender. So the idea of, well, we may have to start from scratch, I don't think that would fly. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.